There's a story the world tells us, a story about a woman who is always surrounded by a group, always laughing in the company of others, always validated by the people around her. But what happens when that woman walks alone? Does she become weak? Does she become incomplete? I want to talk about the woman with no friends. There is a profound difference between being alone and being lonely, yet the world often confuses the two. Loneliness is an ache, a void, an absence of connection that weighs heavy on the heart. It is the feeling of being unseen, unheard, and disconnected even in a crowded room. It is a longing for companionship, for validation, for a sense of belonging that seems just out of reach. Loneliness is not about physical isolation, it is about emotional starvation, a lack of meaningful bonds that nurture the soul. It creates self-doubt, making one question their worth, their place in the world, and whether they truly matter. Solitude, on the other hand, is a choice. It is a space one steps into with confidence, knowing that being alone does not mean being abandoned. Solitude is the ability to sit with oneself without discomfort, to enjoy one's own company without seeking external distraction. It is a state of peace, a moment of reflection, where the mind is free to wander without the weight of expectation or judgment. In solitude, one discovers strength, clarity, and self-reliance. It is in these quiet moments that ideas are born, dreams are nurtured, and self-awareness deepens. Unlike loneliness, which drains, solitude replenishes. A woman who understands solitude does not fear being alone. She does not rush to fill empty spaces with people who do not truly see her. She does not settle for shallow conversations just to escape silence. Instead, she embraces her own presence, knowing that she is complete within herself. She walks alone, not because no one wants to walk with her, but because she values the energy she brings into her own life. She takes herself to dinner, not because she has no one to call, but because she enjoys her own thoughts. She makes decisions not based on others' expectations, but on her own truth. The world often romanticizes the idea of always being surrounded by friends, of having endless social plans, of constantly being connected. But true connection starts from within. When a woman learns to be at ease with herself, she no longer seeks validation from others. She chooses people who add to her life, not those who fill an empty space. She values quality over quantity, depth over surface level interactions. Solitude is not isolation, it is self-empowerment. It is a reminder that a woman does not need a crowd to be whole. She only needs herself, standing firmly in her truth, unshaken by the world's expectations. Independence is not just about doing things alone, it is about owning one's choices, standing firm in one's beliefs, and not seeking permission to exist fully. A woman who embraces independence understands that her strength does not come from the approval of others, but from the unshakable foundation she builds within herself. She does not wait for validation, nor does she mold herself to fit expectations that do not align with her truth. She walks her own path, even if it is unconventional, even if it is misunderstood, because she knows that true strength lies in self-trust. Society often conditions women to seek external affirmation, to be liked, to be agreeable, to be accepted. But a truly independent woman refuses to let her worth be dictated by someone else's perception. She does not need a round of applause to know she has achieved something great. She does not need constant reassurance to believe in herself. She measures success not by how many people approve of her choices, but by how aligned those choices are with her vision. She is her own biggest advocate, her own loudest cheerleader, and her own source of validation. Independence does not mean rejecting help or shutting people out. It means knowing that even if no one stands beside her, she will not fall. She builds her life in a way that is not dependent on external support because she has cultivated an inner resilience that carries her through. Whether in her career, relationships, or personal growth, she does not wait for permission to take up space. She walks into a room with confidence, knowing she belongs regardless of whether anyone acknowledges it. She does not measure her value by how many people approve of her journey. She defines her worth by her own standards, and that is enough. Many people fear independence because it requires self-accountability. It means taking full responsibility for one's happiness, choices, and failures. But a strong, independent woman does not shy away from this. She understands that her power comes from owning her story, the wins, the losses, the lessons. She is not afraid to stand alone because she has built herself in such a way that external validation becomes irrelevant. She does not need to be chosen to feel worthy. She does not need to be praised to feel accomplished. She does not need permission to live boldly. Her strength lies in her ability to stand tall, with or without an audience, knowing that she is enough, exactly as she is. For generations, society has painted a picture of the ideal woman, one who is surrounded by a close-knit circle of friends, a social butterfly whose worth is reflected in the number of people who seek her company. There is an unspoken rule that a woman without a thriving social life must be incomplete, lonely, or even undesirable. But this is a stereotype that needs to be broken. A woman does not need a group to define her existence. She does not need constant companionship to feel whole. Her value is not determined by how many people she surrounds herself with, but by the strength of her character, her ambitions, and her ability to stand on her own. A woman who chooses to walk alone is often misunderstood. People assume she is distant, difficult, or lacking in warmth. They wonder why she does not seek validation from a group, why she is not desperate to belong. But what they fail to see is that her solitude is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of self-awareness. She does not seek friendships for the sake of appearances. She does not force herself into spaces that do not align with her values. She understands that true confidence does not come from fitting in, but from embracing who she is, even if that means walking a different path. Breaking stereotypes means redefining what it means to be fulfilled. A woman can be independent, driven, and content without constantly being in the company of others. She can travel alone, eat alone, and make life decisions without consulting a group for approval. Her solitude does not mean she lacks love or support. It simply means she chooses depth over surface level interactions. She would rather have a few meaningful connections than a large circle that drains her energy. There is an outdated belief that women must always be nurturers, always seeking connection, always placing relationships above their own ambitions. But a woman who breaks free from this expectation understands that her life is not measured by how many people like her, but by how much she likes herself. She knows that being selective with her energy is not arrogance, but self-respect. She refuses to settle for relationships that are built on convenience rather than genuine connection. The world needs to understand that a woman's strength is not tied to how many people stand beside her. She can be fierce, successful, and deeply content without conforming to the outdated belief that she must always belong to a group. A woman is not defined by her circle. She is defined by her courage to stand alone and still shine. Self-love is not just a concept. It is a daily commitment to valuing oneself, to treating one's mind, body, and soul with the same care and respect that is often given to others. It is the realization that the most important relationship a woman will ever have is the one she has with herself. When she learns to embrace herself fully, her flaws, her strengths, her past, and her dreams, she no longer looks for external validation to feel worthy. She understands that her happiness does not depend on someone else's presence or approval, but on the way she nurtures her own heart. Inner growth begins when a woman chooses to prioritize herself, not in a selfish way, but in a way that acknowledges her own needs, ambitions, and well-being. She stops waiting for others to make her feel special because she knows she is already enough. She does not shrink herself to fit into spaces that do not celebrate her. She does not seek love in places where she has to beg for it. Instead, she builds a life where she is her own source of love, strength, and fulfillment. She takes herself out, buys herself flowers, and speaks to herself with kindness. There is a misconception that self-love is about indulgence, about spa days and grand gestures, but true self-love is deeper than that. It is about setting boundaries and walking away from what does not serve her. It is about choosing peace over chaos, authenticity over pretense. It is about forgiving herself for past mistakes and allowing herself to grow without shame. When she understands her worth, she no longer tolerates situations that drain her energy. She stops over-explaining, over-apologizing, and overcompensating. She stands firm in who she is and trusts that she is enough. Inner growth is an ongoing journey, one that requires patience and self-awareness. It is about challenging old patterns, letting go of limiting beliefs, and stepping into the highest version of oneself. A woman who commits to inner growth does not fear solitude because she has made peace with herself. She is her own source of happiness, her own best friend, her own sanctuary. She no longer seeks love to fill a void, but to complement the love she already has within. When a woman truly embraces self-love and inner growth, she radiates confidence that cannot be shaken by external opinions. She understands that she is not defined by her past, her relationships, or society's expectations. She is defined by the love she gives herself, by the way she nurtures her own spirit, and by the way she chooses to rise every single day. In a world that often glorifies popularity, numbers, and social circles, there is immense power in choosing quality over quantity when it comes to relationships. A woman who understands this knows that having a large group of acquaintances does not equate to having deep, meaningful connections. She refuses to surround herself with people merely for the sake of appearances or convenience. Instead, she values relationships that are built on trust, respect, and authenticity. She seeks connections that add to her life, not those that drain her energy or force her to compromise her true self. Forced relationships are exhausting. They require constant effort to maintain, not because they are meaningful, but because they are based on obligation rather than genuine connection. A woman who prioritizes quality over quantity understands that it is better to have a few people who truly understand and support her than a crowd that offers nothing but surface level interactions. She does not chase after friendships that require her to be someone she is not. She does not force herself into spaces where she does not feel seen or valued. She walks away from relationships that feel heavy with pretense because she knows that real connections should feel effortless, uplifting, and reciprocal. A strong woman understands that true companionship is about depth, not numbers. She seeks people who challenge her, inspire her, and genuinely care about her well-being. She values conversations that spark growth over gossip, loyalty over convenience, and understanding over judgment. She does not need 100 people around her to feel love. She needs just a few who truly see her for who she is. Choosing meaningful connections means embracing solitude when necessary. It means not settling for relationships out of fear of being alone. It means having the courage to walk away from people who do not respect her boundaries, support her dreams, or appreciate her worth. A woman who values quality over quantity does not feel pressure to keep people in her life just because of history or social expectations. She understands that some people are meant to be temporary lessons rather than lifelong companions, and she accepts that with grace. This choice also requires patience. True connections take time to build, and a woman who values quality understands that she would rather wait for the right people than rush into relationships that do not serve her. She would rather stand alone in her truth than be surrounded by a crowd that does not truly care for her. She knows that meaningful relationships are not measured by how often people are around, but by how deeply they connect when they are. In choosing quality over quantity, she ensures that every relationship in her life holds purpose, value, and genuine care. Owning your journey means taking full control of your life, choices, and direction, regardless of societal expectations, past mistakes, or external pressures. It is about embracing where you have been, understanding where you are, and boldly deciding where you are going. A woman who truly owns her journey refuses to let others dictate her path. She does not seek approval to follow her dreams, nor does she allow setbacks to define her future. Instead, she thrives in her own space, knowing that her story is hers to write, edit, and reshape as many times as necessary. Too often, women are told what they should be, what they should aspire to, and how they should live. They are expected to fit into predefined roles, to follow a timeline that is not their own. But a woman who owns her journey breaks free from these limitations. She understands that there is no single formula for success or happiness. Some find love early, others build empires before they settle down. Some take detours, fall, and rise again, rewriting their story with each experience. No matter the path, what matters most is that it is hers, not one dictated by the expectations of family, society, or culture. Thriving in one's own space means finding contentment within, regardless of where life currently stands. It means refusing to compare one's journey to others, knowing that each person's timeline is unique. A woman who owns her story does not dwell on what could have been or what others think she should do. She focuses on what she can create, what she can become, and how she can grow. She understands that setbacks are not failures, they are lessons. They are chapters in a book that is still being written, and she holds the pen firmly in her own hands. Rewriting one's story takes courage. It requires walking away from situations, people, and environments that no longer align with one's purpose. It means redefining success on one's own terms and believing that reinvention is always possible. A woman who owns her journey is not afraid to start over. She does not apologize for changing, evolving, or choosing a different path than the one others expected for her. She takes full responsibility for her happiness, knowing that the power to create the life she desires has always been within her. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who knows she is the author of her own destiny. She thrives not because she follows a perfect path, but because she walks it with confidence, resilience, and an unshakable belief in herself. She understands that she is both the masterpiece and the work in progress, and she embraces every part of the journey with unwavering determination. So, to every woman who has ever felt like she doesn't fit into a circle, maybe you were meant to create your own. Maybe your strength was never meant to be diluted by the noise of the crowd. Maybe, just maybe, you were always enough, standing on your own. And that is the kind of woman the world remembers.